Hey everyone! Man, it has been a really long time since I've done a screencast. It's been almost 2 weeks. So totally been off the grid and haven't really been updating things. But that's going to change, and I wanted to do one that I've been meaning to do for a while, so I'm really happy that I did it. And hopefully you guys find it useful. I'm going to cover some high-level stuff, and right now it's kind of rough. I haven't made it live yet, but by the time you're watching this, it is live because you're hopefully watching it on my website. So it's looking probably a little bit cleaner than it is right now, but I wanted to run through the code while I had the time to do it. So what I'm covering today is how to send text messages with the Twillio API in a Rails application. So I built this quick little app for my app a day, which has now become my app every 2 weeks challenge to myself. And with this, we can enter a phone number here in this form field. And I'm going to turn on my phone's ringer so you can hear when the text goes through. 1 second. I think it's on. Okay, cool. So let's enter my phone number, which is this one here, and we hit send text, and it should go through here, and there we go. That was my phone sending me a text message. So I'm going to walk you guys through the code, and as always, it's on GitHub, and you can feel free to copy it, leave any comments or questions about what the code is doing, or if you need help, and I'd be happy to do so. But let's see. I think a good place to start is the routing. So the only extra thing that I added was in the namespace of apps. We had a custom route which has a URL of send text, which hits our texty controller, which is the app name that we're using today, and has a controller method called send text. So the next place we're going to go is into our controller. So on the index action, when you go to the form page, we're creating this new phone number. So we did create a table in the database where a new phone has a number. However, we're not saving anything. I just kind of used it. So maybe going forward, I would save numbers. For this example, I'm not actually saving any numbers to the database. But for the purpose of using Rails form 4, we do have an instance variable called phone, which we're passing to the view. So within the view, we set up our form as such. Take a look at this real quick. So we're just using our form 4 with an instance method of our phone and URL defined specifically to post to send text URL here. So it takes the number and submits it. It goes back to the controller and hits this, or it goes back to the root, hits this custom URL, and then the send text controller action here, and does a couple of things. So at first, we create a new phone and set it equal to the params which are being passed through, which is just essentially requiring that we have a phone number and permitting the number coming through, so we can cleanly pass this rather than having to do something like params phone, right, like this, and then do something like params like number. This just allows us to do it much more cleanly. So we create a new instance of our phone, and it has this attribute of number, and we do a couple of things. So the first thing we want to do is we want to call this instance method clean number. So with our clean number method, all it is doing is essentially scanning over the number that's being passed through. So let's say we enter something like 1203-425, et cetera, it will go through the number and only keep the digits and then join it back together in a string. Then the next line is looking at the first part, or the first index, the 0 index of the string, checking if it's a 1, and if it is, then it's removing it. And if it's not, and this is called a ternary operator, so it's looking at the first, or the 0 index, checking if it's a 1, and asking if it's true. If it's true, then it's going to this first action, which sets the 0 index to a blank string. If it's false, then it just returns the number. Lastly, we're just returning the number unless that number's length is not equal to 10. So that gives us a string of digits that is 10 digits long. So that's an area code, the first 3 digits and the next 4. Excuse me. So after we've ensured that our number is clean, let's go back to the controller. We're actually passing that into another instance method called send SMS. But in this, we don't actually have send SMS here because really like a phone shouldn't really know how to send a message. That's more of this action, which should probably be reserved to something like a module, some kind of mixed in behavior. So that's what we did. We ended up putting it into a messenger module. So here we have the Twilio information on sending SMS, and I'll jump into that a little bit further in a second. I just want to cover actually how to mix in a module inside of a Rails application, because you might get tripped up if you try to do it as you would normally when you're just writing like Ruby locally, like not inside of an application. Normally you can just say like, hey, I want to include this messenger or extend this behavior, and it works. However, inside of a Rails application, you need to be conscious of going into your config, and you can do it right inside of your application RB config file, and saying like and telling Rails to actually auto load those paths. If you don't include library, it'll basically blow up on you and say like, hey, there's this uninitialized constant phone. Like, what's going on? There's no behavior in Messenger that they know of. So you have to make sure that within your config directory in your application RB file, make sure you add this line of code, config.autoloadpaths, and then make sure that you're adding your library. So that's actually a really good point. In library is where you would want to add modules. So I think unless you've worked with them in the past, you might be tempted to maybe just add that behavior to the class, or maybe even make a module and put it in like the models folder, or maybe make some type of other folder and include it. But those should go in the library if you wrote those yourself. And if you did not, then you can add those to the assets. Or maybe even public. I guess that would work as well. So jumping into the actual code of the messenger module and what's happening here. So we are setting our account secret ID or SID equal to an environment variable, which is our Twilio account SID. So if you haven't, go to Twilio and let's see, log in here. You guys will probably see my keys, but no big deal. Log in. Whoops, I didn't forget my password. I want to log in. Cool. So on here, where do we go? We want our phone numbers, maybe. Jasper, Alabama. Yeah, I think this is it, right? Yeah, okay, cool. So when you click on your phone number, it gives you your SID right here. So you'll save that to an environment variable. So if we look back here, so we're setting that to an environment variable. And if you don't know how to do that, definitely Google that. And if I have enough time at the end, I'll show you how to set an environment variable real quick. And then also your authenticity token, you should set that in an environment variable. Also, you never want to push these things up because Twilio costs you money. You certainly don't want to be putting that all over GitHub and having some kind of crawler find that and send out a bunch of text messages on your dime. Excuse me. So once you have those two things set to environment variables, so they're nice and secure, I'll show you where the auth token is also, and just change mine after. If you go to dashboard, or no, excuse me, I think you go to account, you can get your authenticity token and your account SID as well. There's a test one and a live one. Should have just used the test one because I'm making video, but tomato, tomato. Anyway, cool. So once those are set, what you're going to want to do is use the Twilio gem, which you can just include in your gem file right here. If you just do Twilio Ruby and you don't include this, so you do it like that, it'll give you the most recent version. However, this is the most, I am using the most recent version just because I pulled it directly from Twilio gem. And you go here, GitHub, cool, and you can pull it right from there. So once that's included in your gem file, just run bundle, and if you've never run bundle before, you just run it, bundle, install, and that should be good, and that'll update. But once we have that, okay, let's go back. Where were we? Back to Messenger. Cool, so we're setting an instance variable at client equal to this Twilio rest client.new, and that takes two arguments, your account SID, which we've set up here, and our authenticity token, which we've set up here, equal to our environment variables. Now, that is actually something that you can pull directly out of the documentation here. They make it very, very, very easy for you to use. This is an example here. You can pass other arguments. It's really well documented and very, very easy to use. So I encourage you to explore it a little bit further. This is just a very basic example. So once you have your client set, you just want to include the number of which you're sending it from, which will be also available. Let me guess, I've already logged out. Yeah, I'm still logged in. Cool. So that's also available in wherever we just were, dashboard tools, usage, maybe. Yeah, so your number is somewhere in here. Getting started, maybe? Phone numbers, there it is, right in front of my face. So once you purchase a number, it's $1. Once you have the number, you can use that number to send your text messages, and it's pretty cheap actually to send. So I think it's it's like a fraction of a cent per text. So once you have this number, copy that in. Make sure you take out all spaces and dashes and have the plus sign at the beginning, and it should be a string. So then the last thing you need to do is just set your message. So message will equal your client account. You should call these instance methods account message create on this instance, which is an instance of Twilio REST client new. So a new instance of the Twilio REST client. You're going to call account messages create, and you're going to pass some information to it. So you can pass it as a hash, and the first thing we have here is from, and our from number is right here. The second thing is 2, and the value for the key of 2 is 1, plus that number we cleaned, which we've passed here from our texty controller. And then the last key is our body, and it is the message that we are actually sending. So we're sending this message that says work hard, do good, change the world, and a link to a bit.ly URL. Cool. So once that's done, that will send the message through your Twilio account, and you'll get a few metrics. And also if you're using a bit.ly link or something like that, you can track with bit.ly. And yeah, the last part is we're just redirecting back to the index of which we came from. So once that's sent, once that's sent, you just go back to here. So we'll send a text, and we'll see that it's loading up here. It's thinking it sent the message, and then it comes back. So that is a little bit blocking. It would be cool if we could maybe do that in the background, so we don't have to wait for the text message to send. We can just send the text message as like a background job, and then come back to the website, or just immediately redirect back to the page, or make it like an AJAX call or something of that nature. But yeah, that's probably something that we can focus on for another video, but this is just a really short to-do on how to make a text message go through your website. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Please leave some comments below. Check out the code on GitHub, and if you have any questions, concerns, anything like that, reach out to me, and thanks for watching, guys.